All right, let's tell all of our life story. Starting with you.
All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome to our conversation today. I'm Dr. Michelle Quirk. I'm a pediatrician and a run coach and the founder of Mindful Marathon, where I help make running easy and fun for busy professionals. And I am joined by my very good friend, and I will let her introduce herself.
Yes, my name is Jillian Rigert. I am an oral medicine specialist by training. I am currently a research fellow in radiation oncology. I'm a life and leadership coach and a former D3 athlete and marathoner who has had the opportunity to run with Dr. Quirk, and it was so much fun. It was probably the most fun run I've ever done, and strongly endorse training appropriately with her, not me. So we'll talk more about that.
And thank you. That was a lovely introduction. We are here today to talk about, we're going to explore our relationships with and to running. So maybe we should start there. Should we start with how you came to running? You can go first and then I'll go.
Sounds good. Well, my running was funny because I was a shot putter. And when I was a shot putter, I actually was jokingly saying I was going to join the track team because I was pretty, I was athletic, but I was in a state of my life where I was kind of lazy and I preferred not. I had probably had really bad performance anxiety, social anxiety, who knows. But I just thought, you know what, if I say I'm going to do track, maybe it will make my dad proud. So I said I was going to do track. And his enthusiasm and excitement in my decision to do track made me think, oh, crud, I gotta do track now. So I went to track practice. I'm like, what can I do that, I had a very muscular physique and I was really interested in shot put, so I thought it was cool. So I decided to throw shot put, but I also didn't really want to go to practice. So I skipped practice. And as a punishment, I got put in the mile.
Oh.
Yeah, so I ran the mile and I was like, it wasn't too bad. And then when I went to practice for the mile, at this stage of my life, I was in middle school. So my brother was a very good athlete and he ran a lot. I was like, I wish I could run, but I'm just too lazy. And I really like to watch TV, which I haven't owned a TV for since college. So it's ironic. It's funny. So I would prefer to watch TV, but I would be jealous of my brother because society had a lot of things to say about body types and what your body type should be aspired to be. So I was like, oh man, well, I guess I'll try to run. So I tried to run and my directions were so bad that my first long run was 9 miles. And I was like, hooked. So I became a runner because I'm lazy and have really poor sense of directions and learned that I wasn't too bad at it and I could run forever. Mm-hmm. So how about you? What's your story?
Okay, so I was not an athlete at all, I would say. I danced through school, but running was always very difficult. They would make us do that for the physical fitness test every, I don't know, quarter or half a year or whatever it was. And I felt like I got a message early on that I was not a runner. I was not any good at it. And I really didn't have the body of an athlete. I was kind of a bigger kid. And the people I saw, on the cross country and the track team seemed like very fit individuals. And I did not consider myself to be one. And so I came to running a lot later, I would say. I mean, I tried it on and off. I really wanted to run. I would see my friends getting such enjoyment out of it. I had a very good friend when I was in residency who was a runner. And I tried and quit lots of times. And I think part of the reason I quit so much was really just going about it the wrong way. No one really tells you how to run, right? You think I should just be able to do it, lace on my sneakers and just go for 3 or 5 or 10 miles. But some people aren't built that way. And I think that's what I would do. I would just put on my sneakers and try to run as fast as I could for 3 miles and come back feeling like that felt terrible. Everything hurt. Red in the face, feel like you're going to faint, And so that's why I would stop. And so anyway, finally, I reached this point in my life. It was really right after my residency, starting a new job, newly married, lots of stressors in my life. And I got to this point where I was like, you know what, I'm going to try it, but this time I'm going to do it small, like just build really slowly and see if that may help. So I was taking the advice that I was really giving like my patients and families about exercise and just taking my own advice. And so that's how I started, like literally doing 5 minutes around the block, like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, a few times a week. And I was able to do that. And it kind of grew from there. And my husband and I signed up for like our first official 5K, maybe about 6 months or a year after like I started, and stayed consistent with it. And I've been running ever since. That was like 10 years ago. So
This
yeah.
is amazing. And this is why I think it's so important that people come to you as a run coach. Cause I'm reflecting back, and I have on my channel about my compulsive exercise. And I did the opposite of what, I think your strategy is spot on as what you should do. Mine was definitely the opposite, where I realized I have a predisposition to have compulsive, like I have an exercise addiction. So once I started running 9 miles, it just kept creeping up. And then with society telling you all these things, and my first half marathon I signed up for, my grandpa said, you don't have a runner's body. And I spent the rest of like my adolescence proving it wrong.
Wow.
And I excelled. I excelled in that half marathon, and my city that I was in was a high running city, where it's kind of like if you ran, that was a really cool thing. And I think just fitting in, and as like even us talking, the running culture is such a supportive community usually.
Mm-hmm.
So just really started to like that. But I didn't have a capacity to run just a little bit
Yeah.
until this past year, which we talked about, like just such a transformation in learning how to have a positive relationship with self, with running, with nourishing yourself enough to run in a way that's healthy and not detrimental.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm reflecting on just how that one comment kind of followed you, and trying to prove it wrong for such a long time. And I think, back to my first couple of, more than a couple of start lines. I mean, even that first 5K, I remember warming up and watching everybody kind of go into different pace groups. And I was like, let's just start like all the way at the back, because I'm not like those other people, And I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't think we should go, anywhere near there, and just showing up to longer races. Like it's like the first time I did anything new at 10K and then a half marathon. But it's like every time I went, it's like, oh no, I'm not really like one of these people. I'm not a real runner for whatever reason, or I don't look like the people at the very beginning of the race.
Yeah.
So I
And
don't, yeah.
it's so fascinating, because even in college, like when I knew my times, where I knew where I finished, I still had that, like the imposter syndrome of running. And I felt, as we were talking a little bit earlier, was like when I got the build that looked like a runner, my performance declined because it wasn't the natural build for me. I was strongly suppressing my own body type to fit the mold. And then it caused me so much anxiety, because when you're not nourishing yourself, it causes your brain to have higher anxiety. So it further worsened my performance, then further perpetuated my self-esteem detriments, which, just led to that negative cycle, where it's like, man, if I would have looked back and just had more fun with it, my performance. So my last year of college, I decided, screw it, I'm just going to have fun. And my performance was so much better.
Wow.
It just took off that pressure, and I was like, whatever.
Yeah. And I think I think back too, like you said, the running community is so welcoming. And it took so many years for me to really see that, because I really thought of myself as an outsider, And so
Yeah.
I started all of this maybe, about 10 years ago, but I would say it took a good 5 years or so to really feel like I fit in and find my people in my community. But now I see the running community as very welcoming. And of course, like all shapes and sizes are welcome here. But yeah, I think that's still a belief of a lot of people that limits, getting into the sport, trying something new, trying a longer distance maybe. So yeah, I'm here to tell you, we're here to tell you it's possible.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I was just thinking that goes to say with like any any sport where, we're at the gym. And I was thinking about this. I've never had that concept in my brain. I think because I grew up in the gym with my dad. My family's power lifters. So
Oh,
lifting
wow.
weights is normal for me, right? I don't
Okay.
look like a power lifter, but if I did allow my natural body type to just be, you could tell I'm meant to be more muscular. And I remember, like, I don't care what people think if I'm at the weights and I'm lifting an appropriate weight. Like, I just don't care, but I know people do care and they're self-conscious and they're thinking, what are these people going to be thinking? But I had the blessing of growing up with a dad that said, like, do not talk to me when I'm lifting because he's in his zone. So
Yeah.
I apply that to people at the gym because I'm like, they're not paying attention to me.
No,
Like, unless I'm on the bench that they want, like, they don't care.
100%.
Also, I would say that when I had such a low self-esteem about my body type, like, I would skip dance practice. I would skip the things I loved because of my own image of myself. And I would do the exact things that would perpetuate that negative self-esteem and body image. Like, I would not move. I would not go out. I would not do the things that could have brought me joy just because I was trapped in my own mind.
Yeah, I think that even now people think, if they're running outside, like, oh, the people are going to look at me, or the the drivers going by are going to look at me. I'm like, no, first of all, everybody's just kind of clued into what's going on for them. And when I'm out there on the trail, like, I say hello to people, and smile. Sometimes I don't get a hello and a smile back, but that's okay. But yeah, I'm too focused on what I'm doing and my pace, and am I doing the workout that I'm supposed to be doing today? And so yeah, these other thoughts don't really like enter our minds, but we have so many thoughts about the thoughts other people are having.
Yeah. And also, when we think about, I think it's very sustainable when the drive to run comes from within and it's not based off of something like a weight goal or something that is a lot of the things that are outside of our control, or they can really emphasize things that make us feel bad about ourselves. So when I have my compulsive exercise, I had completely different thoughts than I do now. When I run now, it's meditative, it's reflective, it's meant to problem solve and to really develop like a cadence with my body. And that cadence with my body and the awareness of my body then presents as groundedness throughout the day. Where I used to have such an abusive relationship with my body, which in order to have that relationship, I would dissociate, and then that's what the rest of the day would look like. And so
Wow.
it just is fascinating. If people are trying to understand, one, why are they getting into running? Is it an internal drive, or is it for this external cue? Because if you don't like, I mean, I won't say that we all start and we like running when we start. You may not,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah, I think that's one of the first questions. If anyone has hopped on a call with me or filled out my questionnaire or read anything that I write, but the step one is finding your why. Like, that's a big question, and sometimes the first answer that comes to mind might not really get right to it. Like, you may have to ask yourself one, two, three, five times before you really get down to the why of why you're wanting to take on this training, whatever it is. But can you, while you were talking about that, I was thinking, can you talk a little bit about maybe what helped with this transition? Like, what was, I don't know the story of what kind of triggered this change in you,
yeah,
to
yeah.
see what was happening and then kind of switch your whole outlook on what running was to you.
Well, I had pretty devastating. So my history of anorexia turned in about a year and a half ago. I was at a life or death
Mm,
medical complications of anorexia. And I have osteoporosis and I have hypothalamic amenorrhea. And that wasn't enough, right? That wasn't enough because when you're in
somehow.
this, right? So it really was repairing my relationship. I think self-compassion so key. And I really had to do a very holistic approach to understanding the role of an eating disorder in my life because the exercise fit within that paradigm.
Yeah.
And having an abusive, I was taking a lot of my emotional distress out on myself because I didn't know how to use my voice. So when I started writing publicly about the things that I was most insecure about, that actual external release, like the things I write about on Kevin MD, allowed me to heal so deeply. And I got to a place where I developed so much self-compassion that I do not tolerate my own abuse of myself nor the abuse of others. So it was such a profound feedback loop, in a positive feedback loop, because
Mhm.
I was realizing like, wow, if I treat myself like this, I was being treated just like I was treating myself by other people. So when I recognized why other people were abusing me and why I was more vulnerable to that, I was sick of it. So
Yeah.
I was just like, I wasn't getting paid. I was working at 2 institutions. I was so visibly ill and like just alone. And that's not to like, that's just facts, right? And I was like, okay, I can do this for the rest of my life and it will be very short.
Yeah.
Or I can choose to take a chance on change. And it's kind of like, if we're in the messy middle, we don't get the impetus to change. But I was like, I don't want people to have to hit rock bottom to make that huge change. But
Mhm.
when I was at that rock bottom, I found coaching.
Mhm.
I found podcasts by physicians who were open and vulnerable. And that like really started my healing process. It was understanding that people were really, I wasn't alone in my pivoting of careers, like all the internal things that I had made myself incompetent, less than, not worthy of life. I
Yeah.
just had to challenge all that, which is like not a simple answer for running.
No.
It was a deep reason.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, I mean, how powerful though, because running was in your life, before and after. I feel like for me, there was like before running and then after I started running, it's a little bit
Yeah.
different. But yeah, to change that relationship that you have with the sport like that is huge.
Yeah. And it shows up too when we were talking about that whole do not start, do not finish, right? Because running can become an identity.
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear kind of how you process, when we talked about performance anxiety, or like
Hmm.
they're afraid they're not going to do well, or they're afraid they're not going to finish. Like, what
Yeah.
are some things that help you? Because I know it's not easy, right? If you
Yeah.
don't start or you don't finish, and how you kind of help navigate
Yeah.
those.
I think having everyone understand that you're not alone. Um, like there have been, I mean, it's one thing to say for myself and my own experience, but also now talking with lots of athletes to have those stories kind of in the arsenal to say, like, okay, this comes up. Example, we were supposed to run a 10K in May. This was May sometime. And we had both, my husband and I, we were training for it. Like I had done a particular training cycle, like we had it on the calendar, we paid right, we're ready to go. And like the week or two before the race, both of us were just really fatigued, like a little congested. I think we tried a couple COVID tests, they were negative, right? Like we're like something is not quite right. We're not feeling ourselves. And then the night before the race, we looked at the weather forecast. It was supposed to pour rain. Now, I am not usually one to like shy away from running in the rain, but Tony slipped and fell and broke his wrist in February on a rainy run. And so both of us are a little bit
Yeah, for sure.
nervous. So we were like, you know what? I don't think it's going to happen. We're not going to do this one. And we slept in and it was a do not start. And we don't have a lot of those, but it was a do not start and it was definitely the right decision. And like after a week or two of letting it settle, we kind of like reevaluate goals and like there's always another race to run. That's what like I don't know why it was so important at the time. And I thought, I trained for 3 months to try to PR this 10K and like it didn't happen. Well, there's plenty more races to run.
Didn't you PR the 5K that you did right after? Yeah.
Yeah. So there's also another point, like the race that you set out to run may not be the race that you end up running, but it doesn't mean that all of that time spent training gets wasted somehow. Like you still improve, and you were still training. So
Yeah.
good lessons all around, but
Yeah. And I remember when I went into surgical residency and I stopped marathoning, it was such a huge grieving period of my identity as a marathoner.
mhm,
And I had already made the Air Force marathon team. I was going to do the marathon. I dropped the half the week of there was a conference, I think in Hawaii, where most of the residents and the attendings were gone. So there was 3 of us on service, a 5th year and 2 interns. I ran once and I still showed up. I went to Dayton, Ohio, and I ran the race because I had made it the year before. And I was like, well, this is really cool. But there were parts of me, you know, it was definitely not optimized. It was the slowest run I've ever done, but it was one of the best experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I don't remember what time I ran. I actually don't even care. But
Yeah.
I had a lot of mind drama when I dropped from the
Yes,
goal.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was probably no way that I would have finished that half. And if I did, there was one marathon that I ran that I didn't train for at all in dental school. But I had run so many that I was like, sure, I can do this. But it was in San Diego, which is hilly.
Mm.
And it was in June, I think. It was hot. And at mile 6, I was like, what did I do? I do remember my time, which wasn't that bad, but like when I was running it, it was death.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like and it's not worth it because your injury risk is so high.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing about injury risk, we were talking about, you know, a lot of people do come into running for weight loss reasons. And when I first ran my first marathon, I think there were some ulterior motives. And after the marathon, I didn't fuel. And then I couldn't run for a long time because I didn't recover. So I think people, the one thing we forget is that recovery is so energy. There's so much energy that needs to happen in order to recover properly.
Mm-hmm.
So train properly, eat properly, recover properly. Don't do what I do.
I think over the years, I've learned the value of recovery. I mean, just with life circumstances and also some injuries along the way, like it does have such, I mean, it's almost as if the recovery is as important as the training, or at least in the mindset to make sure that you're taking those rest days when you need them and when they're prescribed, and listening to your body in terms of soreness and following some simple rules about, you know, whether or not you should really push it on a day that you maybe haven't gotten enough sleep, you have extra added stress, you haven't eaten well, a whole bunch of things. But yeah, it's taken some time and I'm still learning also, but it's quite a journey.
I always Google how much the Olympians sleep because it's a lot.
Yes.
And like that's their job, right? Like we think about comparing, oh yeah, well I didn't go and run this race like Dina Castor, but she also, that's what I mean, she's like physically made so much to run faster than me, but also like that's what she does. And then I realized like my enthusiasm, my excitement, and what it would mean for me to be the #1 marathoner in the world is a very low enthusiasm for that. Like that to me isn't my dream. Mm-hmm. So I can let somebody else have that dream. And like why do we end up like it's not my dream, like I don't care. And I think putting it in that way, especially like as a black and white thinker, is like, oh yeah, like if I was the best at this, that's not what my values are. And there's somebody that really does have that value, and I'm going to just applaud them for that. And yeah. I have a friend who growing up, we ran together, and there was such a shift. And I think it was in college or something where, you know, it went from my college was very competitive with running, and like I didn't want to go to practice. Mm-hmm. And so then that competition of like, gosh, I'm not as fast as my friend. Something just turned, I think when I did dental school, and you just realize like, who cares? Where then I became like a champion, and I love to see people succeed. And like, I'm like who cares if they're faster than me? Like, good, great.
Yeah. I think it's all about cheering everyone on to their own personal best, right? That's why it's a personal best.
Isn't it so true? And even if it's not, like how much fun, my new caliber of success is how much fun did I have? Mm-hmm. Or like, did I show up? Because I have this half marathon in October. I'm like, do I really want to go? Like the logistics to get to the start line. I just don't know. I mean, I'm a fair weather runner. If it's raining, I'm certainly not going.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. I'm like, no, that's wasting my, like, I'm just going to go run it on the treadmill. Like that sounds like horrible actually. But I think because I ran in college in Illinois, where I was forced to run in blizzards and rain, and I'm like, I'm over it.
Yeah. Well, I know ever since the slip and fall, I'm a little nervous, I have to say. So
Yeah. So tell us more about when people are like, what kind of, I know there's a wide range, but tell us more about when you work with people. What does that look like?
Oh, yeah. Well, right now at this point, so I have, when I started Mindful Marathon like 3 years ago, I only had one-on-one coaching. Like that was what I started with, and I'm still doing that. And it's my favorite thing to do. So I kind of I take a running history. I think that comes from the medicine background, but
Yeah.
there's, trying to get a sense of where someone was with their running, if at all, and if you're on the couch, that's okay. And where you're at with running now, maybe you were a runner but you haven't run in 10 or 20 years, who knows. And then where you want to go, and then kind of structuring a training plan with your schedule. So I work with a lot of busy people. Most have, full-time, very busy jobs, stressful jobs, and or kids, and or lots of other things on their plates. And so a lot of it is just balancing a schedule and figuring out like, what's your goal, what is going to fit into your schedule fairly easily, that you won't feel like running is a chore. You want to enjoy the training. And so, yeah, so we figure that out, and then I write custom training plans, and we do coaching calls along the way. And at the beginning, it's more about the nuts and bolts of running, but then we get into a lot of mindset and finding mindfulness in running and nutrition and all of those things, recovery. So yeah. And then I have a group program for beginners. That's my other thing.
That's awesome. I think what percent, if you had to give a percent of running is mindset?
Oh, yeah, a lot.
Yes.
Probably over 80%.
Yeah, I agree.
Like thinking about the 80-20 rule, like 80%, 20% of your actions control 80% of what happens. But I think it's flipped. Like mindset is probably more than 80%.
I agree with you. 100%.
Maybe 90.
Yeah. And it's even funny because now I like to run, but it's still a mind game.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Me too.
You're just used to what I don't
Yeah.
know.
It's hard. I'm not really a morning person, but I do run in the morning. But really, like when the alarm goes off and it's the middle of winter here, like the thought that goes to my head is not like, I cannot wait to get out of bed today and go out in the cold and run. Like, no.
Yeah.
I have to really go through my own mindset work to be like, all right, we're going to get up, we're going to put our shoes on. Like I do what everybody else does. I'm not immune to those other thoughts.
Yeah. And it would take me, I think when I was running longer, it was the 3-mile mark where I felt like I was finally ready to run. Mm-hmm. Now it's like half a mile, but it was even with the compulsive exercise. And I think it's kind of like burnout, right? It was like, in my mind, it probably was because my mind was like, you shouldn't do this. But at 3 miles, you get into the cadence and you're like, oh, well, here I am. But now it's like I can get there at half a mile. I think it's because I run a lot less, where it doesn't feel as cumbersome because I know I'm not going to be there for a half the day or whatever. I mean, that's obviously a huge embellishment. I don't want anyone to think but it's true. Right? If we can actually, and I think that's the benefit of a coach, is because especially when we think all or nothing, but you're like, well, if you do this amount of time because it fits your schedule, it's better. It's more than if you don't do anything at all. And like that mindset of, I realize now, even if it's for stress relief, like a mile makes a huge difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I found that on the day-to-day, it does help clear my head, right? And I run thought-free sometimes, but on longer runs, sometimes I get to a place where after my head is free of thoughts, then I have good ideas, or I think they're good ideas for coaching and for Mindful Marathon, and just that's sort of like a creative space for me. And I'm not an artist, so I don't know much about getting into a creative space, but it seems like when I go on a long run after 3, 4, 5 miles, after that I can really just think about things. It's very interesting.
Yeah, that's exactly when all my articles come to my mind, is when I'm running. Mm-hmm. I think there's something about the blood flow, right? Exercise is like what the one thing that's been shown to reduce Alzheimer's risk.
Mm.
If we want
Yeah.
to go medical for people, right? If we want
Yes.
to bring it back to medicine, I know you deal with kiddos, but they need to know this.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. I mean, running has so many physiologic benefits that we didn't even talk about. We're talking more about mindset. So,
True.
well, now you're newly coach certified.
Yes.
Tell us
Well,
about,
yeah.
yeah, go ahead. Tell us that.
I've been a leadership coach since December. So I'm a leadership coach within my institution. And I graduate from Martha Beck's Wayfinder Life Coach training on Wednesday, which is very exciting.
Congrats.
And it has thank you. It has so much to do with what we talked about. It's like that kind of rebirth. And Martha Beck has a change cycle, which does have grief and rebirth. And I think that going through Martha Beck in particular, she's got a book that's out. It's called The Way of Integrity.
Mm-hmm.
And really leaning in and learning more about yourself. I learned a lot of the things in my life I was pressuring myself to do were so out of alignment, which were then my coping skills were the ones that I mentioned that I was ridding myself of. So as I become more within my integrity and my authenticity, I don't have to grab those maladaptive coping skills because I can just be who I naturally am, which is interesting, especially in our society where we have so many external cues about what we should do and who we should be. And I just, and I think, again, that's the benefit of hitting rock bottom, that the risk of being like, nah, was lower.
Yeah.
The risk of staying the same.
Yeah.
But now I love to offer that to people, right? Because all my platforms are career transition, life transition,
Mm-hmm.
and just healing from societal belief and even our running, right? Like, I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
You are good enough. You're perfect. Just the way we are.
And on that note, where can people find you?
I have JillianRigertCoaching.com, and they should join Permission to Pivot.
Yes.
And also my YouTube channel.
Permission to Pivot is your Facebook group.
Yes. Yep. And it's the link to it can be found on my YouTube channel. It's probably easier because there's, I think, a few different renditions of Permission to Pivot of different people. So you can join all of them if you want, but also join the one that will have us there. So, and how about for you?
You can find me on my website. It's mindful-marathon.com. And I'm on Instagram as mindful.marathon. I'm on Facebook as myself, and there's a business page, but those are best. And on YouTube, it's the Mindful Marathon channel.
I love YouTube. It's my favorite.
It is fun. Yes, you have great videos over there too.
Yeah.
Well,
your pleasant face will be the best of the best, right?
Oh gosh, yes, likewise. And your dog.
My dog, yeah, he's right here, but he's right here, and he's right here.
Adorable.
Thank you, appreciate it. Yeah, and he's obviously the host on my YouTube channel because he barks and invites himself. So I don't have to edit him out. I just invited him in.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for having this conversation. I know it will inspire and hopefully help a lot of people.
Likewise, I appreciate you as always. And like I said, if people really want proper training, proper support, go to you, do the opposite of what I do, but also can be there to cheer you on in your running.
Yes, I'm here to cheer you on. I'm here for you. All right, thanks everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode. If you liked it, please subscribe and share it with a friend. And if you are a newer runner or a runner who hasn't run in a while and you're looking to get back into the sport, you can find out how to work with me over on my website, which is mindful-marathon.com. See you on the next episode.